Hi guys, this is your week 8 video on what to do this week. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the readings. I don't really have a theme this week. I really just kind of started to pick from the remaining texts that we have left to read, and I knew that some of these authors you may not ever be exposed to without reading them in this class, so I wanted to introduce you to them, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about them. So Elizabeth Bishop, you're going to read At the Fish Houses. This is a poem. It's not super long, but it's not just a few lines, so give yourself time to think about it. It starts off sort of shallow, I guess. Not necessarily shallow, but at the end of the poem, I think that Bishop really starts to dig into some things. And Bishop is interesting because we already read 2 poems by Marianne Moore, and she was kind of Elizabeth Bishop's mentor, I guess. Some people have even argued that The Paper Nautilus, that poem was written for Elizabeth Bishop, and so we can see similar thematic elements in terms of just sort of like the ocean being inspiration here. At the Fish Houses is probably set in some kind of New England town, probably Maine. Whenever I read it, I almost feel like I'm back in Unit 1 reading The White Heron, because I feel like the setting is really similar. So I think you'll like it if you're interested in, I guess, kind of just like a poem that talks about the depths of who we are and uses fishing imagery in order to do that. We also are reading John Cheever's The Swimmer. The first time I read this poem, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I'm sorry, poem. It's not a poem, it's a short story. The first time I read this short story, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. It's basically about this guy who travels an immense distance by swimming in people's pools. So he swims through his pool, climbs his fence, swims through his neighbor's pool, and just keeps on swimming through people's pools. And I think that Cheever is making a statement about something, and you guys can kind of tell me what it's about. Making a statement about something throughout as the swimmer is swimming, because again, it's another one of those things where it kind of starts off confusing or slightly shallow, and then it gets more deep as you read into it further. We're also reading Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, We Real Cool, and this is a very short poem, and possibly a poem of satire, so I'll be curious to hear your takes on that. Billy Collins, also poetry. Billy Collins was the poet laureate in the early 2000s, I think for a while, but I know in 2002 he was. The Night House is a poem about people's feelings at night, and I guess I kind of feel like it's about how our minds start to stir at night, and we start to think about things that we aren't really processing during the day, because maybe we're just so busy going through the motions of our daily tasks. But at night, whenever our bodies start to shut down, but our minds turn on, we see, I don't know what you guys do in your lives, but I see memes on Facebook about this all the time, about I wanted to go to bed, but my mind is still going and going and going, and I think that Billy Collins is kind of talking to that. Billy Collins is awesome. If you guys are interested in his poetry, he's very prolific. I mean, he's written a ton of poems, and they're all really good. And then we have Sherman Alexie, which we're going to read Pawn Shop, because I think a lot of this stuff starts off kind of like, meh, what's the point of us reading this? And then it gets into deeper themes toward the end of the poem. Pawn Shop does that too. This is also a poem. But Sherman Alexie is great. He is a Native American author, and he writes a young adult novel called The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. It's a great book. It's so interesting. It's about a boy who lives on a reservation, and he's extremely smart, and the reservation schools just don't necessarily have the resources for this boy, so he goes to a white school that's outside of the reservation, and it's kind of, I think it's a coming of age novel where the main character, who is Sherman Alexie, has to kind of figure out where he belongs, and does he belong on the reservation or not, or does it even matter? Great book, really, really good, and easy read. You know, it's YA lit, so it's not that all YA lit is easy, but this one is. So if you ever get the opportunity to read that book, I strongly recommend it. I read it in college. It's awesome. And then we're reading John Updike's Separating. Another short story. Separating refers to like divorce, so that's essentially the subject matter here. John Updike is another one of those really extremely prolific authors. He's written a lot of stuff, and probably most famously in terms of just taking a literature class in college, if you've ever, or really even high school, if you've ever read A&P, about the boy who works at a grocery store, and these girls come in on a summer day in bikinis, and they kind of get scolded for wearing bikinis, and the boy in A&P is like, I quit, sort of as like a stick it to the man kind of thing. Anyway, that's called A&P. We're not reading A&P, we're reading Separating, but John Updike writes A&P, and it's a great story, so I have a recommendation for you there. But Separating is good, and I think that we're probably starting to get into more, I know this is postmodern, but I use modern in a different sense, you know, in terms of like contemporary, I guess is what I should say. So I think we're starting to get into contemporary themes that, yes, we can all relate to, but what is as you're doing your discussion boards, just focus on what the text is saying. So what to do this week? Pick 3 of these texts to read, as usual. And there's 2 lessons that I want you to study. There's vocabulary. I don't necessarily know if the vocabulary really applies to what we're reading this week, but I'm kind of just dwindling down and getting to the end of the vocabulary terms. So there's just a couple of them, all kind of relating to fables and myth and things like that. And then I also want you to check out a revising the essay lesson. And so this is going to talk a lot about just revision. The self-assessment for that is not a quiz per se. It's more so just me taking a survey about kind of where everybody is at. So I would love it if everyone responded to that, and there's no penalty for honesty. So if you say, I haven't thought about this essay at all, that's okay. I understand. I hope that you'll think about it. We're now officially in week 8, and we have 10 total weeks. So the essay is going to come up really, really quickly, you guys. So yeah, let me know where you're at in terms of planning and thinking about the essay. You know, if you've picked your text, what's going through your head. What do you have to do this week? So we have our 5th close reading response paragraph. Please read through those. I'm currently grading response 4, and I'm video grading those. So you'll have videos in your inbox, your CFCC email. Double check that this week for those. And then we have our second to last discussion board. So we only have 9 discussion boards, and this is the 8th one. I know you guys are probably getting sick of asking questions, although honestly, you guys are doing an awesome job. I'm not getting sick of reading them. I know it takes me a while to get them all graded, but I really enjoy reading everything that you guys are saying. So be on the lookout for videos in your emails. Be on the lookout for updates from me this week. and just keep writing, keep working on your essay. I can't stress this enough. If you guys have questions about anything, I know some of you just aren't at this point yet, and that's okay. But if you have questions about anything, if you are working on your essay and you need second eyes or you want me to read it, email it to me. I'm happy to read anything. I will read 100 things. Just all you have to do is reach out and let me know. Don't be afraid. So I look forward to hearing from you guys, and let me know if you need me.